Okay, so we're now deep into this discussion about leadership and dealing with others and giving advice to others. And thereby highlighted the idea of humility and how critical that is vis-a-vis our relationship with others, and how when you recognize your own you have skin in the game, and when you're talking to someone else, it's not just someone else, but you could identify with your own shortcomings, albeit maybe to a lesser degree to the person you're speaking to. When you have that spirit of humility, then your words can be healing to the other person. So now there begins to address a question about this. The question of addresses is that it seems that the Torah gives the opposite advice. Torah says that a leader has to lead with forbearance. He has to lead with strength. He has to lead with power. And how does this fit in with this idea of humility? So we're up to page 344 in the new paragraph. What we still need to understand that Gadol Hader Unasi, the leader of the generation, is the Gadol Hader. He is, when we use the word the Gadol Hader, the great one of the generation, we're talking about the leader. So by the tzaddik of the generation, by him being marpe, by him being weak and not exalting himself over the community, by him making himself equal to his community, by doing this, by weakening his position, by not being so overbearing, he is able to heal others. He's able, through his teshuvah, through his efforts, he's able to bring refuah, he's able to bring healing to the sin of the generation. This seems to contradict the whole idea of leadership. Leadership is meant to be that the leader is exalted, is lifted above everyone else. As Rabbi advised someone, you should conduct your leadership with birama, upright, strong, be up there, be forceful, be bold. Throw bitterness in your students, meaning your students should have fear of you. So this seems to contradict this whole idea of being humble before your students, being vulnerable, being in it, talking to yourself with them. It seems to contradict the advice of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who says that you have to be bold and your students should sit in fear of you. And in movements and it's understood the leadership has to be with this boldness, with this exaltedness. So how is it possible that the leader of the generation is classifying himself in the same zone as a community? And the question gets greater. And not just to put himself in the same category as a community, but in fact to say that he can find in himself, albeit in a more subtle form, the same issues that he finds in the community. And especially as we were learning that if he doesn't do this, he causes sin to the generation, he causes death to himself. We're not just saying this is a nice thing to do, we're saying this is a critical thing to do when it seems that the advice of Yud Nasi flies in the face of all that we're discussing. If he doesn't equate himself to the generation, doesn't find in himself the faults of the generation in himself, he is sinning to them. He is causing sin to them. So what's going on? The explanation is like this. This advice that Rebbe gave, that you should lead, your leadership should be bold. What he meant is that you should not do something that contradicts your leadership. Hainu, you shouldn't do something which is unbecoming of a leader. Just like a Talmud Chacham is not supposed to mingle with everyone, so too a leader of the Jewish people, a king, is also not supposed to mingle with everybody else. The word nasi in Hebrew means someone who is exalted, someone who is uplifted. Also, the word the Rebbe used, Rama, you should conduct your leadership. Rama means with being exalted, being uplifted. That's only vis-a-vis your leadership. The people should be concerned. People should be careful about your honor. Rashi says you should put your fear upon them so that they know that you're the boss. They should know you're the leader. So too, when it says your students, you should throw bitterness in your students, there's a measure and a limit to how that works. In order that your students should be able to hear your words properly, they should accept your words properly. When there is a student-teacher relationship, the point is that the student should hear and receive and absorb the words of the teacher. That's the idea of giving them this sense of bitterness. That means that they should have this sense of reverence for the teacher, that they should hear it. We turn off the heater for a second. Okay. The word mara, which I'm translating as bitter, is also used as a for the gallbladder, and it says that the liver has this anger in it, and the gallbladder is what quiets the anger of the gallbladder. So Zreik Marabel Tamim, throw the gallbladder in your students. I'm not, unfortunately, Dr. Bressman isn't here, so I can't fact check my translation. But it's something like the gallbladder doing something to quiet the liver. So when it says in the Torah, you should throw the mara, throw bitterness in your students, it also means you should throw something there that calms them down, meaning your role is that your students should be in a state of reverence for you. Your role is not that they shouldn't be frightened of you, and that they shouldn't want, that there should be something missing in your connection with them. Obviously, if Jonathan puts on a screen, I'll tell you a mice. But let's go for it. If you don't give them the appropriate measurement of, just like physically, if there's not the appropriate amount of the gallbladder is not doing its job, so then the liver will not become. And if there's too much of impact of the gallbladder on the liver, so then that the person gets sick, chas v'shalom. So the Ma'aseh says a story like this. there was, after that Rasha passed away, Shiva Lubavitch was in Rostov, and it became very difficult to find a place for the yeshiva. So Rabbi Chitchik was one of the students at the time. He said that, like Rasmus, are you in shul?
I'm in shul.
I'm upstairs.
Okay, thank you.
So he said that they had a hard time finding a place for the yeshiva. So they eventually found a shul that would take them. And the shul had 2 floors. And the problem was that there was another group of students from another yeshiva Nevardok. And yeshiva Nevardok also wanted their own place. So in the wintertime, the best place was downstairs. And somehow the yeshiva Nevardok managed to get there first, and they got the warm downstairs, while the other yeshiva was upstairs. And all of a sudden, in the summertime, when it became hot downstairs, so this downstairs was smaller. So when the oven was on, it was able to warm up the whole downstairs. But the upstairs was freezing. It wasn't just that they stayed there to learn. They stayed there all day. They slept there. So it was really hard during the winter time. So in the summertime, on the contrary, they enjoyed the fact that they were able to be in a comfortable area which was more airy. But one morning they come up to their place in the Beis Medrash, to their area in the synagogue, and lo and behold, all the students in the Vardak are there, and there are 2 boys by each table, and what are they going to do now? So they asked them to please go back to their whatever. It was messy. So they went to their madrich, the leader of their group, and Dr. Restman.
Yes, I'm trying to turn this off.
I'll help you.
Yes, I must have put my thumb on it.
Asmachta.
I have no idea what's here. Sure, fine.
So they had a difficulty because they wanted to get these boys to go back to their place downstairs, and they wanted to enjoy finally the fresh air upstairs that they were suffering with the whole winter. So they went to the head of the Nevardik yeshiva. His name was Mordechai. Mordechai, this is the problem. This is the issue. Can you please help us out? So Mordechai did not react well to their request. In fact, he was downright upset. And he was so upset that he slapped the boy who asked this. And not only did he slap him, he really let loose on it. And the boys were appalled. And one of them said, "Hey, aren't you guys learning works of Musar, works of Torah ethics? How can you have such anger?" So Mordechai said, "It's not anger. What I'm exhibiting over here is a spilus. Spilus means excitement. In other words, he put the proverbial lipstick on a pig. He gave a kosher title for his bad behavior." So when it says in the Torah that the leader has to exhibit greatness and leadership and strength, there's a measurement, the one that's kosher and when it's not. And just like the impact of the gallbladder on the liver. Did I say that right, Dr. Ressman?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the gallbladder has to quiet the liver. Does that make sense? And if it's too much,
it has to empty so the liver doesn't get congested.
okay. And there's too much of it, too little of it.
Yeah, you get bile, you get jaundice.
Okay. So the word that we're using for gallbladder is mara. And so just like there's appropriate measurement between the relationship between the gallbladder and the liver, so too must there be the right measure of reverence of the students to their teacher. The right measure. So it can't be because the teacher has some insecurity issues and therefore he is he's weighing himself down on the students. Getting back to the leader. It says also in the Torah, do not inflict too much fear in your home. The family of the leader, the family of the scholar are his students. They're considered his family. So therefore, on the one hand, he has to act with them in a way that they know that they should have respect for him, they should have reverence for him. But there has to be with a measurement, there has to be with a limit. And it's only in order that they should hear what he has to say and they should accept what he has to say, but not that he is trying to exert his authority. That's how all of leadership is meant to be, that there is a sense of exaltedness. There's a difference between the laws of a king and the laws of a Jewish leader who's not a king. A king is not allowed to forgive his honor. A leader is allowed to forgive his honor. So when we say that when Rabbi advised this leader that he has to be exalted, there's a limit to it. You have to know what your function, what your job is, and know how it's meant to be. One of the reasons that God took us out of Egypt was because we did not change our names. So you have to know what you're doing. Are you expressing? Was a Fabrengen, and this guy was bragging about his accomplishments. And it says in the Talmud that a Talmud Chacham has to have an eighth of pride. This guy had gone beyond the eighth. He's gone, beyond the 10-yard first down achievement. And everyone at the Fabrengen was looking at this guy and like holding back their smiles from this guy's arrogance. And the guy just used a Hasidic word in order to purify his behavior. There was a boy in Yeshiva Lubavitch who he said to another boy, "I'm just going to have some mazonis." That's a bracha we say for cake, right? So the other boy's like, "Why don't you say that?" There's the Shulm Koratan, who was Mashpil Lubavitch. He says, "Say like it is. Say you're having cake. Say you're having cookies. Don't give it a holy term and thus kosherize it." So this guy, he was exhibiting arrogance. He had arrogance. It was a Fabrengen, and he was using the Fabrengen to show off. That's what it was. So just because you are a leader, just because Rebbe says a leader has to have he has to be revered, you have to know what the role is over here. Is it so your word should be accepted, or is it because you have some insecurity issues and therefore you want to put the other people down and they should give you excessive respect? Are you a Haman? You want everyone to bow down to you? Where is this going? So that's the advice that Torah gives about a leader, unlike a king, where the Torah says that a king cannot forgive his honor. However, even by a king, the Torah says, a king's spirit should not be exalted over everyone else. Although we're saying that he can't forgive his honor, and there's certain things he cannot do, but still, he cannot feel above everyone. Much more so a regular leader who is not in the position of a monarch. And this is the meaning of the pasuk. If a spirit of leadership, if you have received a position of leadership, do not leave your place. The attribute of humility that you had before you became a leader, do not leave it aside. Because if you will be weak in your leadership, if you'll be weak in your exaltedness, if you won't consider yourself so important, you will be able to, first of all, not be guilty of everyone else's wrongdoing. It won't be your fault. Because of your humility, you will not be castigated. You won't be accused because of the sins of others. It won't be your fault, because you won't be stroking the fire and making things worse by your behavior. And even more, when you equate yourself to everyone else and you find in yourself a trace of what everyone else has, then when you talk to others, you're also talking to yourself. Besides the fact that it will bother you, you'll bother you your own problems, because you realize that you're part of this. Besides the fact that the sin of the generation will bother you, because you feel that you're part of the generation, you're in the same category as everyone else. I can tell you about Mordechai, that Mordechai, although it wasn't the event of the decree of Haman, it says in the Torah, Mordechai knew what happened to him. Although Mordechai was the uncle of Esther, and he was advisor of the king, etc., but he felt whatever is happening to Jewish people is happening to him. So, besides the fact the leader of generation is affected because he feels what's going on in his generation, and he feels this is happening to him and where he was, like Al Shalom Rabbi Reichik, like when there was issues with kashrus in his town, he took it personal. He went Mesiras Nefesh to try to change what's going on in the kashrus. It wasn't like, oh, there's some issues in some stores. He took it personal. He's like, why is this happening? And he did whatever he could to change it. So it bothered him personally. Besides the fact that you care about others' mistakes, besides that, it touches the very deepest core of your heart, the issues that you have in some subtle form. Not only does it bother you what everyone else is doing, but you also, the traces that you have of this issue, since you know the gravity of it, it bothers you till your very core. And the leader of the generation has great pain from it, and he does tshuva from the depth of his heart. He works very hard in Torah and Tefillah to correct what the traces of these issues that he finds in himself. So when he puts himself in the same category as everybody else, and he considers their problem to be his own problem, and he finds a trace of their problem in himself, so then when he says words to them about what they need to do, the words come from the very core of his heart. There is a covenant, there's a promise that God gave to lips. The promise God gave to lips is the words that come from the heart enter the heart of the listener. So besides the fact that he is not guilty for the sins of the generation because he's talking in this way, and he's talking in a way that's not going to put people off, on the contrary, he's going to have to heal the great sins of the generation. The days of Gola, their Mashrat, by him equating himself to the community, when he's by him equating himself with the people, the power of Torah, he is empowering the people in his generation to fix their mistake. By him rebuking them, letting them know what they're doing. By his words of rebuke, he's making them closer to the Torah. So by him teaching the Torah and then learning about the Torah, they'll be inspired to hold themselves back from making these grave mistakes. For example, when he teaches them the laws of Shabbos, the laws of kosher. So a lot of times people just don't know. And there are very serious issues in kosher and Shabbos that people transgress just because they simply don't know. So there are many Rishonim, many of the early codifiers of Jewish law that talk about issues that are punishable by stoning, by excision, like cutting off the neshama, by a carbon chatas. So chas v'shalom, people transgress all these things just because they don't know about it. So by the side of the generation being weak, not by him being humble, by him not leaving his place of humility that he had before he became a leader, by him not being so exalted and so overbearing, and by him including himself with the community, and because he is in that state of bearing the burden with them, feeling that he is in the same place as them, he is always able to speak with inspiration. He always speaks from his heart, and thereby he's able to heal the great sins of the generation. In short, what we did today was we learned the question we had. How is the Rebbe saying that the leader of the generation meant to be so humble when the Rebbe says he's supposed to be exalted? And we answer that there is a time and place for everything, and you have to know the measurement of what you're trying to accomplish. And the most important ingredient isn't that people revere you. It's, as they say in America, people don't care as much as you know until they know how much you care.
Who said that?
I have no idea. So by him putting himself in the same category as everybody else, and him feeling that their issues are his issues. Number two, that he has his own issues himself, not just because he cares about them, their issues are his issues, but more that he finds this in himself. Then when he talks to them, he's not talking to them, he's talking to himself, and therefore they can hear him, and they'll be inspired. And a lot of things that they just simply don't know, and they'll only be able to know about these things until once when he talks and he puts himself in their he talks in a way with humility that they could hear him. Any questions or comments or criticism? All right. Great day, Jonathan. Great day, David.